Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Fortnite In Depth. In today's episode, I want to talk about the Scoped Assault Rifle, which is the best gun that you're probably not using. For some strange reason, this gun is just the best gun that people don't tend to use, and it's incredibly useful in squads. I will admit that it is somewhat less useful in duos, and probably not so great for solos, but this is really a top tier weapon for squads. I love it, I carry it all the time. If you watch my streams, you could probably seen the amount of work that I've done with this weapon. However, it does have some downsides, so I do want to talk about the things that aren't so great about the Scoped Assault Rifle before we get into the good stuff. And the bad stuff right up front is the damage, which I'm pretty sure is the number one reason people aren't using it. The blue Scoped Assault Rifle will deal 23 damage per shot to the body, and the purple one only goes up 1 more damage to 24 damage per shot to the body, which isn't super amazing. And when you're looking at headshots, these are simply double damage headshots, so the blue one will deal 46 damage, and the purple one will deal 48 damage. In case you haven't noticed, these damage numbers are kind of low compared to just about everything else in the game, and they're by far the lowest in the rifle class. They just come in bottom tier, but they're also kind of at unusual numbers when it comes to shots to kill. That's going to force you to take more shots to kill than other weapons. If you look at good old No Skin over here, who has not picked up a shield yet, it'll take up to 3 headshots to kill with this weapon, or 5 body shots, which is quite a lot given the fact that you only have 20 in the magazine. Moving on, let's say that your No Skin enemy has managed to drink a 50 pot and you're pegging them, it can still take 4 shots to the head or 7 to the body, which is getting closer to half of the magazine. That is just way too high. And finally, if you're fighting somebody late game, this is where it gets really irritating. The Scoped Assault Rifle can take 5 headshots to down an enemy, or up to 9 body shots, which is basically half of your magazine. And that is way too many shots to kill for most players to be comfortable with. For damage comparisons, the blue M4 will deal 33 damage, the gray burst rifle will deal 27 damage, and the blue Scoped AR is a whole nother tier below that, down at 23 damage. So the damage isn't very good on this weapon. The rate of fire is very slow too. Both the purple and blue Scoped Assault Rifles will only fire at 210 rounds per minute, which is slower than the regular M4 and SCARs and slower than the combined burst rifles, so not super amazing there. And with the lowest damage and the lowest rate of fire, well, the DPS is extremely low. When it comes to ratings, the DPS is almost the lowest in the entire game, with the exception of a few niche weapons like a pump shotgun or a sniper rifle you have to work the bolt on. Like these kind of one and done weapons technically, mathematically have lower DPS, but of anything that fires multiple bullets, especially automatically, this is by far the lowest. For comparison, the blue Scoped Assault Rifle DPS is only 80, whereas your gray burst rifle DPS is 110, and a gray M4 is 165. So the blue Scoped Assault Rifle is less than half the damage of a gray M4, damage per second that is. So not looking very good for this weapon. Reload times are pretty normal for rifles, 2.3 and 2.2 respectively. The downside to this is that given the lower magazine count of only 20 rounds, you will be reloading very frequently, so this will be more frustrating. It does have one good benefit, and that's that when it comes to damage per shot, it deals the most to structures of any of the other weapons in the game. So if you need to chew through a structure and you're running really low on ammo, you can go ahead and break out the Scoped AR and start shooting the structure, because you're getting just a little bit more damage per shot. The overall DPS and the speed of the break will be lower, but the efficiency of breaking down the structure will be much higher. So I've talked for about 4 or 5 minutes about why this gun kind of sucks. I haven't said very much good about it, even though the title of the video and the intro would lead you to believe this is one of my favorite weapons in the game. Well, what makes this weapon so good is something that's a little bit more intangible and outside of normal on In Depth, and that's that the Scoped Assault Rifle is a perfect hit scan with laser-like accuracy 100% of the time when you're scoped in. Obviously the hip fire kind of sucks, but when you scoped in, there is no bloom anymore. With the first shots update and some of the previous updates, you just don't have any bloom on this weapon. You used to have bloom on the scope, which made it completely worthless, but now your shot literally 100% of the time always goes wherever your tiny scoped crosshairs are, so you will never again have to deal with bloom, and you can hit people very easily at very extreme ranges with this weapon. I really don't like bloom in Fortnite. I don't think it's a very good or rewarding mechanic, especially with how wide the bloom can get given some minimal and relatively normal shooter movements. I feel that a lot of my assault rifle gunfights come down to RNG, which is why I prefer to build in and go for shotgun kills or snipes or something more reliable. The rifle fights have just never been favorable to me. Even with the First Shots update that adds a new mechanic where you have to sit still and wait between your shots, which makes you more vulnerable, and I feel like every single no-skin on the planet can spray me down with laser-like accuracy, but if I shoot at somebody and my bloom covers about 90% of their body, my bullets will manage to hit that 10% that's not covered and I won't hit anything. But with the scoped assault rifle, there's no bloom, it's just a hit scan. It's like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or most of the characters in Overwatch. Whatever is on those crosshairs is going to take a hit, and that also makes it very, very easy to get headshots with this weapon, and you can get successive shots with this weapon. Like a lot of assault rifle fights boil down to spraying and waiting and spraying and waiting, and you can see the other person missing in their bloom and there's breaks between your hits. Not this gun. If you have good aim and good tracking, you can punish people. It does kick a bit and it does wobble a bit, so it's harder to do at long range, but the end result is that you can lay down some serious damage on unsuspecting enemies at long range. Enemies that are far away and they think they're safe, especially if they're not paying attention, you can shoot them 3 or 4 times with this gun before they have any idea what's going on. I will say as a caveat though, you're rarely going to get kills with the scoped assault rifle because of its low DPS. And normally you want a gun in a game that gets you kills. There's nothing like insta-kill shotguns, rockets, snipers. There's nothing like a high DPS weapon that shreds. And this isn't that weapon. The DPS is just low, so you're not going to get kills with it. But you can lay down some extreme harassment on enemies, and you can do some top-tier team support. If you were playing solos, that harassment guarantees that you won't be fighting an enemy at full health. If you're playing duos or squads, this makes it very, very easy for you to support your teammate in a gunfight, pressure the enemies through the psychological pressure of them taking additional damage, and just lower their health to tilt the fight into your teammate's favor. I think the scoped assault rifle is the #1 most important gun for at least one person to be carrying in your squad. I, honest to God, think it's more important than to have a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher or a gold scar or any other kind of big boy weapon, and it's because of squad dynamics and how squads move. Every squad has a shot caller, every squad has people that play aggressive and people that play conservative, but generally speaking, you find that almost every squad has a last person. Every squad has a conservative, campy, slow, backline, non-rushing, build up at the edge of the map and sit there kind of person, and this is the perfect weapon for that guy to have. I think you should give the scoped AR to your campy player, and he's going to sit in his little 1x1 fort and watch the 3 of you run in and fight, and previously he would be trying to get snipes, which would be inconsistent at best, or he would be trying to get random rifle shots, but with the scoped AR, he can be perfectly accurate and just ding any enemies that show up and just exist while you fight. Your 3 aggressive slayers can go in with shotguns and some machine guns or whatever, and while they're fighting, your guy with the rifle can suppress anybody that's giving you a threat. He can weaken the shields of everybody else and really tilt the fight in your favor, even though it'll be 3v4 close-range fights. He can also protect down teammates, he can challenge snipers a little bit, and he can do just about anything as long as he's not expected to rush. I will admit that the scoped assault rifle is not nearly as useful in duos or solos. Because it's in duos, you send your teammate into a 1v2 situation, which is much more spooky and you can't support him quite as well. And in solos, realistically, most of the time it's better to have a rifle. There's nothing wrong with the scoped AR and dink people at a distance and weaken them, maybe pick some people off that are fighting each other, but really it's better to have a rifle or a sniper or somebody that can just kind of insta-down people. Speaking of snipers, it's not a replacement sniper rifle. Try not to get overconfident. This was my biggest weakness while doing this in-depth episode, and when using the weapon in general, is that I get really good at headshotting people. So I just dink, 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 and it's almost 50 damage a hit, and I know I'm hurting them super bad, and then I get my head exploded by a sniper rifle because I'm just sitting still. It's good for harassment, it's good for quick peeks, but you're not going to beat somebody that has a bolt-action sniper rifle that knows what they're doing. You'll beat dumb snipers, you'll beat kids, you'll beat people that aren't paying attention, but any competent player is going to punish you really, really hard with a sniper rifle, so just keep in mind it's a harassment tool and not a guaranteed kill tool. I do think it's a great weapon. I think you should all pick it up and try it, especially on PC, a little more than console, because it's easier to aim on PC. I can just click on their bodies and heads at almost any range and support really well. I'll admit that it's somewhat harder to do on console, but the theory and practice are more or less still there, that you can support your teammates, and just easier to aim than anything with a bloom. I love this gun, and I wish that more people would use it. Guys, that's all for this episode of In Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.